Oh yeah, what's up, y'all? Before I get started, I want to say rest in peace, MF Doom. He was one of my y'all don't know who MF Doom is. One of my favorite artists slash producers who recently, well, they say he passed away on October 31st, but we didn't find out until New Year's Eve. So yeah, it's one of my favorite artists. I might have heard me mention it, but you know, rest in peace. Also, Happy New Year. You know what I'm saying? Decided to do a follow-up video on what it feels like to be an introverted thinker, TI user. Because y'all seem to like the one I said, what it feels like being a SC user. So me, I'm a TI dime. I'm gonna do a video on that. Okay, I will say being an introverted thinker, let's say that you're all about what makes sense to you. You're all about what works for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm all about what works for me. I'm all about what works. Introverted thinkers, we're the kind of people who invented all the words in the dictionary. You know what I'm saying? People who invent like where words come from, what we call things. A lot of times it comes from an introverted thinker because that's kind of how we think. We can look at something that doesn't have a label on it and then make sense of it, and then like based on what it does, what its uses are, stuff like that, we can come up with a good word to describe it. A lot of scientific terms were created by introverted thinkers. A lot of slang terms, like you talking about STPs. STPs, we could be the people that create a lot of slang terms, stuff like that. If you want to be more black and white with it, but it can, okay, of course, vice versa. It can happen either way. But you also got like maybe NTPs could be. You could say the NTPs are the people that create the words in the dictionary and scientific terms. If you want to be like super black and white, but kind of just to get the gist of it, it's not necessarily a thing that's 100%, but you know what I mean. But yeah, we're those type of people. As far as me being an introverted thinker, I think part of I have a different kind of learning style than a lot of people. I think it's partially has to do with me being an introverted thinker. For me personally, I learn real well from trial and error. That also has something to do with my extroverted sensing. Like for me, my extroverted sensing, my introverted thinking, I learn from trial and error. Like for me, I don't learn real well just from somebody telling me how to do this. I have to go out and try it, and I had to go be able to make sense of it. What works or what doesn't work. Introverted thinking is very much a trial and error sort of function. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's pretty much the nature of extroverted sensing. Introverted thinking. So basically, as far as being an introverted thinker, we have our own struggles though, because I know people always want to say intuitives have the struggles. Some of you people, like, okay, it's kind of a given that a lot of the people that think they're intuitives, there's a good chance they're probably mistyped. I mean, I'm not gonna go and tell somebody they mistyped because, you know, a lot of the stigmas and things like that can make you think you're an intuitive. Like one of them is like intuitives are struggling, like they have the hardest, which isn't this. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have a hard, but every type and every function can have their own struggles pretty much. So this could make you think you're an intuitive. You could just be an introverted thinker like me, you know what I mean? But yeah, introverted thinking is very, we have a lot of struggles because we have our own way of thinking. We usually have our own individual way of thinking. We have our individual way of viewing things. We likely have our own individual way of doing things that works specifically for us, as opposed to like extroverted thinking. Extroverted thinking is all about creating a system that works for everybody. It doesn't look at the nitty gritty details of like, okay, what about this kind of person? Like maybe the different ways that people can show up and like making adjustments for different types of nuances within personalities. They don't really think about that. It's thinking about what in general, like it's thinking about the 90%, like, okay, what works for 90% of people? You know what I'm saying? Versus like the 10%, they not, it's not worth worrying about. So that's what TE does. Introverted thinking can come in and refine that. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're good for. We can come in and refine the details and like make an extroverted thinking idea better by getting to the details, stuff like that. But it could definitely be hard. Like for me, being an introverted thinker, I know a lot of introverted thinkers can't be good at math. Me personally, my introverted thinking made me bad at math. Actually, I was always good at like, I was more artistic, you know what I'm saying, language side of things, you know what I mean? So I know some introverted thinkers are really good at math though because of that logic. Me personally, my introverted thinking made me bad at math. This just shows how I could be different from person to person, but yeah. Introverted thinking is very philosophical in nature. We think very deeply. I know a lot of people thinking intuition is only philosophical function, but it's farthest thing from the truth. Me as an introverted thinker, I'm extremely philosophical. The reason for that is because introverted thinking, it compares and contrasts ideas. So I'll take an idea over here, an idea over here, and I'll compare and contrast it. Think about like a Venn diagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, how like the two circles are together, right? And then the one in the middle is like everything that's in common, or each side is like, differences. That's kind of how introverted thinking is. We are sorting things out like that all the time, pretty much. Like I do it without even noticing. I'm always sorting things out. And coupled with whatever your auxiliary function is, it can be slightly different. Like for any user, well, I'm not even gonna speak on that. I'll say for SE user like myself, I could do it with physical like things in the environment. Say like in sports or something, right? TI-SE user will, like if they see a defender over here, they can be able to go this way instead, just because it logically makes sense. Like this us sorting it out in our head, things in the environment, okay, it makes sense to go this way if something is right there. Stuff like that, except it's not that simple, of course. It's very much, take that simplified explanation and then just imagine it coming in 1,000 different ways and being 10 times more advanced than that, because I know a lot of people simplify sensitive functions. Well, they say that, 5 senses isn't accurate, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's another video. But anyways, yeah, that's an example for introverted thinking. Introverted thinking can make a person be into debating, just because like introverted thinking, we can look at an idea and we can see the flaws in it. Really introverted thinking can see the flaws in a lot of things. Like we could look at, depending on what we're doing, we could look and like pick it apart pretty much, see all the parts and stuff like that. That's what introverted thinking is good for. Me as an introverted thinker, you see me pause a lot when I talk. That's me going back inside my head to use my introverted thinking and coming back out. So yeah. Yeah, pretty much being introverted thinker, it is very difficult, man, when you're young and introverted thinker. It's like we have to develop all our other functions for our introverted thinking to work well. Because introverted thinking by itself is very, it's just hard. It could be hard for people to understand. Let's put it like that. It could be really hard because we'll just have our own, it's almost like having our own personal language in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course we'll speak English or whatever, right? But we'll have our own, we can almost have our own sort of way of like describing things that other people don't describe it like that. Y'all hear it on my videos all the time. Like, because of subjective logic, I'm picking apart my own head and I'm going off my own opinion pretty much. So yeah, it's basically very opinion oriented versus like, I guess introverted feeling is more like, it's opinion oriented, but it's more like good and bad sort of thing. Us is more like, in our head, it's like a seesaw. You know what I'm saying? We kind of, you see, shit. But anyways, you kind of see introverted thinkers. Like sometimes you'll see me kind of go like this, because in my head, it's really like a seesaw. If I compare and contrast the two things, I'm think about like a seesaw, which weighs more. Say if something is two things are similar in weight, it's gonna kind of move a little bit. That's kind of what we're doing in our heads, if that makes sense. So you'll see an introverted thinker do that sometimes. If you look closely, we don't do it like, but you could see us kind of do like this, like, thinking like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're basically doing when we do that. So, yep. Being an introverted thinker is, I don't know. It's just, I'm just so used to being introverted that it's almost hard to describe, like, because that's my dominant function. I can't overthink. It can't cause you to be an overthinker. Like, you could kind of reanalyze the same information. Well, you could overanalyze information, really pick it apart like too much. That's if I'm in a TINI loop, especially. But yeah. I mean, that's just me simplifying it. It could be described very much more complex than that. But introverted thinking is deep. It's one of the functions that are the deepest, I think, in my opinion. Like, I use it to like dissect myself. I look at I observe my own actions, and I like dissect my own actions to understand my own subconscious mind. That's another thing I've got to mention. Introverted thinking is also good with understanding people, which I've described before. People don't like, they don't talk about this. They don't think that introverted thinking can read people, but we actually can, because we can look at a person's actions and understand the subconscious mind from based on their actions. Introverted thinking is more like, we read people, we'll know things about you before you even have realized it, pretty much, just because we're in touch with the subconscious mind. A lot of times we are, or even not even the subconscious mind. We can just look at somebody's actions, and in our heads we can pick it apart and think of the reasons why a person might have done that. You know what I'm saying? So we can also be very good at reading people, even though it's not usually described as a people function. It's really not a people function, but a lot of introverted thinkers actually do use it in a people-oriented sort of fashion. Like, they might use, like, you see a lot of introverted thinkers might use it to analyze people more often than they would to analyze machines. Even though you would think that it's just analyze machine. That's what most people think it does. Really, it's used to analyze anything, used to understand anything. Introverted thinking, well, I'll tell you, introverted thinkers tend to be smarter. It's not because introverted thinking is an intelligent function necessarily, which it is, but it's mainly because when you use introverted thinking, it's like you're always using that brain muscle. It's like you're working your brain muscle, pretty much. If you think of the brain like a muscle, the process of using introverted thinking, it takes a lot of effort with your mind. So what it tends to do is it can make a person more intelligent a lot of times, because you use so much effort to use the function itself. So anyways, yeah. So as far as introverted thinking, okay, so if a person who is introverted thinker is unhealthy, this is going to be most likely people with low introverted thinking, like, auxiliary, tertiary, or inferior. But it can also happen to dominant. Your dominant function be unhealthy, but I think it's a little less likely. But basically, with introverted thinker, everything got to line up in your head. If everything is lined up, like if all your thoughts and everything line up in your head, you pretty much are like a perfectly working machine. It's like kind of like a machine. Like if everything's lined up, it's working perfectly. Now, if there's something that's off with the introverted thinking, like on the other hand, it kind of can be like a badly working machine. That's not the right word, but yeah, it can kind of be like a broken machine or something like that in a way. So like, I see this a lot with ISFJs. Like, if they introverted thinker is not working well, they can take up too many leaps in logic, and INFJs too. They could take too many leaps in logic and stuff like that. They could be too quick to say they understand something before they've actually thought it all the way through, stuff like that. And they could be like ignorant, things like that. That's like, at the worst, of course, like an introvert thinking is undeveloped or, not developed properly. So yeah, it could pretty much make you, and at its very worst, introverted thinking can almost make you like, in a way, almost make you like mentally retarded almost. It could get that bad, you know what I'm saying? Versus like being like a genius. It can be that bad. Like, if things are not lined up correctly in a person's mind that's using introverted thinking, it could just be like a broken machine. That's the best way to describe it, in my opinion. But I think that's all I got to say, man. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. Stay tuned for more.